Hi, I'm Payal. I run Ramsud Technologies, and before that, I spent years writing code, then leading teams, then eventually making the decisions that decide whether a code base survives contact with reality. So, today I want to answer a question I get asked a lot by junior engineers, by clients, even by other architects at conferences. What does a software architect actually do? Because most people have got the wrong picture. They imagine someone who knows every technology, every database, every framework, every message queue better than everyone else in this room. And look, that is a very nice skill to have, but it is not the job. So, what exactly the job is? And here is the trap I fell into early on. I thought being a good architect means the person with the deepest technical knowledge. So I would go deep into Kafka, Kubernetes, and whatever was trending that year. And I got good at those tools. But I noticed something. Knowing a tool inside out didn't actually help me decide whether to use it. Knowing Kafka doesn't answer the question that matters, which is why Kafka here for this system with this team under these circumstances, under these constraints. So knowing React, it will not tell you what should live in the front end and what needs to sit behind a service boundary, protected version owned by someone else. So that gap between knowing a tool and knowing when and how to use it and why to use it, that gap is the entire job. So if it is not knowing everything, what exactly it is? So I will break it into four things. First, you decide what components in the service in the system should even have. So before you are writing the code, you are drawing the boundaries. What should be a separate service? What should be a shared library? What should talk to what? And what should never communicate with each other? Second, you have to figure out which quality attributes actually matter for this system. Not in the abstract. Every system wants to be scalable, reliable, secure, but you can't maximize all of them. An internal admin tool used by 12 people does not need same reliability engineering as the payment system. So part of the architect's job is having an honest conversation about what you are optimizing for, what you are explicitly choosing not to optimize for. Third, you have to set the constraints developers work within. I'm not asking you to micromanage their code, but you have to draw the guardrails. Which patterns are allowed, where the data boundaries are, what that means for a service before it ships. And the fourth, picking the architecture style that actually fits, not the one that is trending on Twitter this week. So, microservices, monolith, event driven, layered, each of these is a trade off, not a status symbol. So, let us make this concrete because I think this is where it clicks. Suppose a client comes to you and they want to rebuild their HR platform. So the instinct, especially from an engineer who's excited about the new tools, is to reach straight for microservices, add a message queue, put a LM part assistant in front of it, cool stack. It is very impressive on the paper. But the actual questions are, how many engineers do you have to maintain this list? What's your actual traffic pattern? Is the system handling 10 requests a minute or 10,000? What happens to this business if this goes down for an hour? Where is the data sensitive enough that it needs to be isolated? Sometimes the answer really is microservices and event streaming, but sometimes it could be a well structured monolith that a three-person team can lead, maintain with clear internal boundaries so that it can be split apart later if it needs to be. And neither answer is smarter. So the job is picking the one that's right for the system, this team, this moment, and being able to explain why. If you are an engineer listening to this and thinking about growing into an architect role, here's the practical takeaway. Stop trying to learn every technology. Start practicing the questions. Next time your team picks a tool, don't just learn how to use it. Ask why it was picked. What alternative was rejected and why? What could break if traffic went up 10 times? What would you do differently if the team were half the size? You build architectural judgment the same way you build any other skill. by asking the same questions repeatedly on real systems until the pattern matching becomes instinct. So, what does a software architect actually do? They do not memorize technology, they make decisions under constraints that the rest of the team can build on with confidence. They draw the boundaries, pick the trade off deliberately, and be able to defend every one of those choices with a reason and not a trend. That is the work we do with every client at Ramsud. Before a single line of code gets written, because the decision you make in week one are the ones you will be living with for years. If you are building something new or you are stuck maintaining decisions nobody remembers making, that's exactly the kind of problem we like to dig into. There's a link in the description, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.